Viewing or listening to this podcast confirms acceptance of the disclaimer visible on your screen or found at authorscott.com/podcast. Welcome to the Regaining Health and Humanity podcast. I'm Dr. Scott Johnson, your guide on this journey to natural well-being. Here we explore evidence-based insights, revolutionary breakthroughs, and powerful health strategies that not only inform, but inspire change. Together, we'll uncover the mysteries of human existence and unlock the secrets to thriving. This podcast is more than just knowledge. It's your catalyst for unleashing extraordinary potential. Get ready. Your journey to boundless health and happiness starts now.
Hello, friends, and welcome to the Regaining Health and Humanity podcast, your trusted source of factual health information. I'm your host, Dr. Scott Johnson, and I'm excited about today's topic. Have you ever wondered what truly fuels your vitality, or why energy levels plummet as we age? Today, we're diving deep into the microscopic powerhouses within every cell, your mitochondria. To explore this topic, I've invited Dr. Deborah Muth to the show. Dr. Muth is a leading expert in treating complex chronic illnesses. With over 2 decades of experience, she combines natural therapies with conventional medicine to empower her patients to find true health. She's also the author of the upcoming book, If Not MS, Then What?, where she shares her personal journey and groundbreaking approaches to healing chronic illnesses. So buckle up. We plan to reveal how optimizing these cellular engines can be the key to reversing chronic fatigue, sharpening your mind, balancing your hormones, and reclaiming your health. Welcome, Dr. Muth.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here tonight.
I think the basics is where we should start with explaining what exactly are mitochondria and why are energy.
Absolutely. So I like to tell people the mitochondria is just a big word for cell structure, right? It's kind of a scary word, but it really shouldn't be. So it's a vital part to our overall health that drives our energy. And mitochondria are the body's energy engines. I call them the cellular batteries because if they're drained, you're going to feel drained. They also help turn our food and our oxygen into what we call ATP, which is just another big word for fuel source. So that energy currency of the body, and it fuels every single system in the body. It depends on our mitochondria. So if our mitochondria are weak, we're basically running on empty. No matter what else we do, it's going to continue to be an issue for us.
Yeah, and there's a lot of talk about mitochondria and mitochondrial dysfunction these days because there's a connection between mitochondrial dysfunction and various different conditions, because if your cells don't have enough mitochondrial function to produce energy, then that cell is not going to function very well. So what are some common factors that people maybe could see this dysfunction showing up in the body as, or what are some common symptoms people might overlook if mitochondrial dysfunction is occurring?
Yeah, absolutely. It's very common symptoms that you wouldn't necessarily think of as being a mitochondria issue. And it's things a lot of people deal with every single day. So we're talking about things like fatigue and brain fog, weight gain. That's a common thing. We'll see a lot of hormonal imbalances. If you wake feeling tired, even after you've had a good night's sleep, that's an indication that the mitochondria can be off. Certainly those mood swings that swing back and forth. And it's not just the little day-to-day ones, it's the significant swings back and forth. We'll also see muscle pain or weakness. We'll see a low resilience to stress. So little stressors, you go off the handle, you can't handle the stressors, or maybe you can't bounce back from a stressful day as well. And these really are things that commonly people just think of as, oh, it's aging. I've just been burning the candle too much. When the mitochondria becomes severely distressed, we'll see even more significant problems, diseases like ALS, Parkinson's, MS. And oftentimes, this is where people get what we call gaslit. So you go to your doctor, you complain of a bunch of symptoms, and all of a sudden they're like, you just have way too many symptoms for this to be real. There's got to be something else going on. It must be depression, or you're a hypochondriac. And they're told that it's nothing. Women are commonly told, oh, honey, it's just because you're raising children and you're working. It'll get better. Don't worry about it. And these are these are really big issues for a lot of people, especially in today's world. We all know somebody who's dealing with at least one or two of these symptoms. And oftentimes doctors don't think of it being a mitochondrial issue. We go looking for the disease, or we're trying to just label it. And that can be a big problem for people.
What we should be watching out for in today's world that might damage our mitochondrial function?
That's a great question. So unfortunately, we live in an environment where things are quite toxic these days. We have a lot of toxins around us. Glyphosates, which are your herbicides, your pesticides, and people might think that they're not living around those areas. But these things, if they're sprayed on a breezy day, can literally blow up to 1,500 miles after they've been sprayed. So really everybody's affected by it. You just don't have to live in a farming community to be affected. And people will often say, well, I close my windows when that happens. It's not enough. These things stay in our environment, not to mention that they're sprayed on every single food we eat. And even when we're trying to do a really good job of eating healthy lettuce and vegetables and greens, I often tease people and say, well, you just had a Roundup salad. That's all you had, because everything's sprayed with it, unless it's all organic. And even then, it's hard to sometimes tell if somebody has a truly organic product, because they're allowed to have a certain percentage of these herbicides and pesticides on the products. Certainly mold is a big issue that will disrupt the mitochondria. It's a known mitochondrial disruptor. And mold is starting to be more commonly known in the health industry. When I started 20 years ago, we just thought of mold as being more mold allergy, not mold toxicity. And it was probably about 15 years ago when Dr. Richie Schumacher started to really coin this issue with mold toxicity. And I see it way more now than I ever have. And people dismiss mold. They're just like, well, it's just a little bit of mold. I'll wash it off with some bleach. First thing, that's the worst thing that you could do. You don't want to do that. You'll spread more mycotoxins, which is just toxins that get released from the molds. Those things get into our mitochondria. They get into the DNA and they change things. They damage that. There's certainly heavy metals that we're exposed to, lead, and cadmium, and gadolinium. We see that a lot in people who are doing contrast in their MRIs or CTs, which can be quite often for a lot of people trying to figure out what's wrong with them. Processed foods is not our friend. You know, back in the day, we used to do tallow and butter, and those things were really good for us. And then somehow they got this really bad rap, and we decided seed oils were better and sugar was better and processed food was better. And now we're starting to say, wait a minute, maybe that wasn't such a great idea. These seed oils aren't as healthy for us as we thought they were. The chronic stress that we're under is really bad for mitochondria, especially trauma. We all have some kind of trauma, whether it's been a physical trauma or an emotional trauma. And these days, most people live in a chronic stress system. They're worried about how they're going to pay their bills, what are they going to do with their kids, how are they taking care of their parents that are getting older. If we even dare look outside of that and start thinking what's going on with the world today, that's a little bit of stress there and trauma for us. There's a whole variety of medications. You know, we're grateful that we have medications that save people's lives, but I do believe that we over-medicate our population. There's certain medications like statins that we know can affect the mitochondria and cause issues. They cause a lot of the side effects that we're talking about with the mitochondria today. We don't get enough sun. We don't get enough movement. We're not outside with nature enough. So we could go on and on and on about all the things that damage the mitochondria, but these are all things that we're exposed to every single day that affect each of us at a little bit different level based on our genetics. But it leaves it so that there isn't a single person on the planet that's not untouched by some of these things that could affect our mitochondria.
It sounds really challenging because there are so many things that could assault the mitochondria. And you mentioned glyphosate. I was just asked yesterday by somebody, well, wouldn't it just cooking my foods get that out? And I said, no, actually, because it incorporates into the plant cells. And so you're not going to get it out by cooking it. And
Right.
so it's just something that all of us have to deal with on a regular basis and be aware of and support our mitochondria and really our entire body because of all the things that we're being exposed to.
Yeah,
It's
and sometimes this is where the environmental working group can be really helpful for us to see which ones of our foods are worse than others. The clean 13 and the dirty dozen. If we're struggling to figure out where we're going to spend money and we want to do certain things organic, that's a really great resource for people to at least start making some changes and recognizing of those whole foods, which ones do we really want to do organic and which ones could we go, okay, I could probably get away with not spending my money on organic for that one. But this one I eat a lot of and it's really toxic. So let me buy the organic on that side of things.
just the awareness. You're right. There are a lot of tools now in modern society that allow us to get the help we need in choosing different foods and choosing better options. I wanted to ask a question about mitochondrial dysfunction and whether it affects men and women differently, especially a woman maybe that's in postmenopause or even during the aging process.
Yeah, that's a great question. And the answer is yes. For women, the mitochondria is affected differently, especially as we merge more into our later years, go closer to menopause. Estrogen is very protective of the mitochondria. So as we start losing that estrogen, that's our shield, that's our protective coating. And that's why a lot of women during menopause will feel like they've kind of hit the wall. And for men, testosterone plays a really important role, but that crash tends to happen a little bit later. They're not going to feel that until they're in their 60s or maybe late 60s. Women are going to start to feel some of that in their late 50s to early 50s, and that decline can really be problematic. The mitochondria actually have estrogen receptors that are directly regulated by hormones. So that estrogen, specifically estradiol, we have multiple forms of estrogen in our body, but the estradiol is the one that increases the mitochondria's effectiveness. It has some antioxidant capacities and energy output. And when we see that estrogen start to fall, the inflammation rises. And that's why women will experience more joint pain or muscle pain, problems with sleep and focus and concentration. Their detox is going to be slower, their brain's going to be worse. And we also see women disproportionately affected by conditions like Alzheimer's and fibromyalgia and autoimmune disease, MS. And in part, that's because of that lack of estrogen. And a good chunk of women will be diagnosed with MS in that early menopausal state simply because they're starting to lose that estrogen that was so protective.
We talked earlier about some of the threats that can damage our mitochondrial function, specifically toxins, stress, poor diet or lifestyle. Can you explain a little bit more and how exactly these are impacting our mitochondrial health? Because I think a lot of people recognize these just impact our overall health. They're negative factors that increase our health, but how or what specifically are they doing to the
Yeah, these toxins actually get into the body structure, and some of them can directly affect a person's DNA. And we don't think about that so much. In part, it can affect the DNA. Some of it's genetic related too. If we don't possess the certain detox genes that we need to remove these toxins, they will build up in the body. And as they build up in the body, they create damage on a cellular level. And most of the damage is created from an inflammatory standpoint. But if that inflammation gets to be too much, the body kind of tips its scales and then it starts to directly affect the immune system. The immune system can't fight toxins off. It can't fight off illnesses like mold and other infections like Lyme disease or viruses and things like that. And when we start tacking on one after the next, that mitochondria, we start to cleave off the damage in that mitochondria with the inflammation. And it just becomes a bigger and bigger problem. It's it's really sad for people because they don't understand it's actually happening and they don't understand exactly what's happening. And sometimes it's more than just one thing that's causing that mitochondria to be inflamed or to become damaged on a cellular level. And then if we can't detox, that just becomes worse and worse over time.
So one of the challenges might be that some of the symptoms or the signs of this really cross over with other conditions. So people might say, well, I have fatigue and brain fog because I have hypothyroidism or Hashimoto's or something like that. Or they may say my hormone imbalance is because I've been exposed to these xenoestrogens throughout my life. So how do you explain the link between mitochondrial health and conditions like brain fog, fatigue, and hormonal imbalance?
I think whenever somebody's presenting with a unusual amount of fatigue, it's not that normal, like I'm just tired from once in a while, but it's that fatigue where they can't function throughout the day or they really have to take a nap or they can't get out of bed. That kind of fatigue is very different. When I see that kind of fatigue, I'm already suspecting that there's a mitochondrial issue. When I'm seeing cognitive decline to the point where the person can't function, they're having word finding issues, they can't remember. It's more than just, I can't remember a name of somebody or who's that actor? I can't remember it. Because a lot of times they're just not on our radar often enough, so we don't think about it. But it's that really significant thing. I'm looking at a chair and I'm calling it a table, or I can't find the word at all. In the past, we would look at that and start to say, okay, what disease is causing this? Or is it a hormonal imbalance? Is it an adrenal imbalance? Is it an infection? Is it something else? Is it a nutrient deficiency? What's causing this? And honestly, all of those things are great to identify, but we haven't yet identified the root cause of what's causing the mitochondria to be damaged. And so we have to go back and then try to figure out what caused the mitochondrial issue to begin with. So if I see somebody come in and they're complaining of more than 2 or 3 symptoms, I'm already thinking there's a mitochondrial issue. I've walked away a lot from saying, oh, it's just adrenal fatigue. It's never just that. There's always something deeper in that. So for people who've unfortunately been exposed to, say, long haul viruses or HHV6, herpes family viruses, Epstein-Barr viruses, the newer viruses that are in our environment these days, when they've been exposed to those things and they've gotten sick from them and they've just never recovered, oftentimes you'll hear people say, like, I've never felt the same since I had Epstein-Barr or since I've had the recent virus over the last couple of years. That automatically makes me start to think that their mitochondria has been damaged as a result of it. They haven't been able to bounce back. And there are some different tests that we can do to prove the mitochondria has been damaged, that it's not just a symptom of something else. We can actually do specific tests to see what is happening on a mitochondrial level now.
That's good because, you're mentioning adrenal fatigue. And like I say, there's all these conditions that continue to show up as crossover symptoms that just make it more challenging to really diagnose and get the right diagnosis to help the person start to heal. And then you talk about all of these viruses that can potentially be dormant viruses and reactivated within the body. And that becomes a challenge in and of itself that you have to address as well. So a lot of factors that you've got to just consider as you could think about what might be the root cause or of your mitochondrial dysfunction.
Yeah, and we forget some of these viruses are starting to share their genetic makeup. So viruses have RNA, bacteria have DNA, but they can actually start to share each other's genetic material to make them stronger, make them survive better. And unfortunately, in part, not you and I, and most listeners haven't been the culprit of this, but the way we farm, those practices, the pesticides, the herbicides that we've sprayed on those foods that we eat, have created some of this. They've changed how bugs try to survive. And as a result of that, we've made these superbugs. And these superbugs, there's no reason for them to leave. We make great hosts. And so if we bring something in to try to get rid of them, they're just going to keep trying to stay alive and grab onto something else. And by doing that, they become stronger, they create more damage. And that's where we talk more about mitochondrial damage, right? That just continues to cause that problem to occur over and over and over again.
It's kind of like a perpetual cycle where you're trying to correct it, but you're continually being exposed to the things that are damaging it. And so it's a cycle that you got to break and get out of, which kind of leads me right into my next question. How can people begin to restore and support mitochondrial function naturally?
That's a great question. There are so many things that we can do, but some of the basic things we'll talk about, and then we can talk about supplementation and things like that too. But sleep is number one, right? We have to start removing the daily insults. We need to clean up our diet, clean up our home, get rid of the stress. We need to figure out a good way to sleep. And sleep, yes, people can run on 4 or 5 hours of sleep. And I hear people hold that like it's a trophy, like I can go on 5 hours of sleep. And you might be able to, but you probably shouldn't be doing that. And you certainly shouldn't be doing that for decades. It's going to come around and bite you at some point. So that good quality sleep and using some different devices that they have, like an Aura ring, and there's lots of different things we can use to track our sleep to actually see how good our sleep is, how long our sleep is. Are we getting too much light sleep, too much deep sleep? Having a sleep hygiene program, I think, is really good. Unplugging from the computers a couple hours before you're going to go to bed. Make sure you're using the blue light on your computer so that you're not stimulating your brain before you go to bed. Certainly don't watch the news. That usually is never good for us. Even scrolling on social media, sometimes that we see something that we don't expect to trigger us, and it does. And then there goes our brain when we go down to sleep. We just start thinking about it. I think another really important thing is good water and hydration. Most of us are dehydrated. Most of us don't drink enough water. We don't drink quality water. Purified water is really important. Water that's got good minerals in it, but is free from a lot of the toxins. Sunlight, just getting sunlight exposure on us is so important. Most of us are wearing sunscreen all the time these days, which I don't think is a great thing to do. You're actually blocking some of the good sun rays that help us to produce more vitamin D. Not saying that you can't wear sunscreen or you shouldn't, but we should be out in the sun at least for a period of time where our skin is actually absorbing the things that are coming from the sun. I think breath work is really important. Our vagus nerve is so overstimulated these days, or for some people, it's so completely shut down because they've been in a stimulated state for so many decades. But that deep breathing, that relaxation, that's really important for the mitochondria, and especially moving, getting outdoors, walking, running outside. If you're a runner, walk. You could do yoga outside. You could just do breath work outside. Being outside and moving, doing stretching is so important for us to just start with the basics and the foundation. Because if we don't start with that, we can throw all the supplements at you that we want, but you're still going to struggle if you don't have some of these basics in place.
The listeners that have been listening since the beginning of my podcast are recognizing the repetition from so many experts that are coming on and talking about the same lifestyle and diet things. I love that because there's a consistency, there's a great consensus among the experts that have come on my show in what we need to focus on. And we are generally a reflection of our lifestyle. And so we need to focus on our lifestyle and get that in order, foundation. And then the other things we can do will build on top of that, which is my next question. What are some specific nutrients or supplements that you consider essential for mitochondrial support?
I'm so glad that you mentioned that. We all are saying the same thing. And it's not that we want to be a broken record. It's just that it's really true. And you have to lay the foundation. It's like building a healthy house, right? If we have a wood foundation versus a concrete foundation, the longevity of our house is going to be much shorter on a wood foundation. So build the foundation and then you can add these supplements and it works much better. So magnesium is one of my favorite foundational mitochondrial supports. It boosts the energy cycles. It supports with brain, mitochondria, and memory. It calms the nervous system. It helps us sleep. So magnesium is key for us. CoQ10 is amazing. We really need CoQ10 as a primary source. Your methylated B vitamins are really important. I like a methyl B complex. Now, some people can get a little anxious from the methylated forms. That usually keys us in that they have a little genetic mutation, and you might have to use a different form of vitamin B before you can go to a methylated form. But most people tolerate it pretty well. L-carnitine is really important. Creatine to me is so important. It doesn't matter if you're working out or not. Creatine powder is essential for the mitochondria. Alpha lipoic acid is another product that's really good. Your phospholipids are great. Phosphatidylcholine is super important to build mitochondria. The thing with phosphatidylcholine is you don't want it to come from a sunflower derived source. If you can, you want it to come from an animal source. Eggs are one of the best sources for phosphatidylcholine. About 2 to 3 eggs a day is enough phosphatidylcholine in your diet to get enough for the whole day. So here's my prescription to say it's okay to eat eggs again. You don't have to be afraid of them. There's another supplement that we call plasmalogens. Plasmalogens are a little bit newer to the forefront of building the mitochondria. They've maybe been around for about 5 to 6 years, maybe slightly longer than that, but we're still learning about plasmalogens. And plasmalogens are actually made from our oils, so like EPA, DHA, or for many of you, you'll know it as fish oil. But these oils need to cross the blood-brain barrier, and without choline present, they can't convert anything into a plasmalogen that can cross the blood-brain barrier. So you can have a lot of it in your body, but not actually get it across the blood-brain barrier. And by not having it there, we're going to have more problems with Alzheimer's and dementia, ALS, neurological conditions like that. And unfortunately, we don't make a lot of plasmalogens from our food sources, and our liver has a very difficult time converting them as well. And these plasmalogens help us create fuel for the body. And even if you just did simple things like plasmalogens, CoQ10, and carnitine, that could really fuel the mitochondria. So people who don't like to take a lot of pills or have a little bit of a budget concern, if you could just do those 3 things alone, that would significantly help build your foundation for a healthier mitochondria.
There's a lot of talk about red light therapy, ozone therapy, IV nutrition. How can these help improve mitochondrial health?
These are great sources. I love all of these biohack sources. Red light therapy is so good. This is going to be your red and near infrared light. It stimulates the cytochrome oxidase enzyme that drives the fuel to produce more mitochondria. So it's going to help you reduce your oxidative stress or damage, so your cell damage. It's going to help you improve brain function. It's going to help improve blood flow. It helps with regeneration. Not to mention, it just kind of feels good, especially if you're like me. I live in the Midwest where it's cold most of the time. Having a nice little red light can be super helpful. Ozone therapy is really amazing as well, because it's a stimulus and it stimulates the mitochondria for repair and detox. So it increases oxidative enzymes like glutathione and SOD. And for people who have genetic mutations where they're blocked there and their bodies don't make them naturally, ozone can really help to remove those toxins that we had talked about earlier. Chemicals, metals, molds, viruses, bacteria, things like that. Ozone can help get rid of that. It can also help repair the mitochondria damage. It helps with oxygen utilization. It gives you so much energy and makes you think clearly. It's really an amazing tool. And then certainly IV nutrition has been around for ever. And especially for people who have poor functioning guts, they're just not absorbing well. They have a lot of GI issues. Maybe they're dealing with SIBO or H. pylori, or they have colitis or Crohn's, true things that are making them not be able to absorb a lot of their nutrients. By giving IV nutrition, we can bypass the gut and we can get those nutrients into the system faster. And so we like to do things like magnesium and B vitamins and calcium and minerals and all kinds of things we can do. But that rapid absorption really helps to restore the mitochondrial function a lot faster for people.
I don't think a lot of people realize just how many things contribute to what B vitamin you should be taking, because a lot of people now are aware of MTHFR mutations and they know that they can't methylate their own Bs, and so they're reaching for these methylated Bs, but then they don't think about your vitamin D receptor mutations and your COMT mutations that also determine what form you should take. And so you're right, if you start to take that methylated B and feel anxious, or there's some other signs of that, then another form may actually be a better option for you. I want to end with just a question. What if somebody just doesn't have a lot of money and so they can't get into a lot of these supplements? What are some practical daily habits or lifestyle changes listeners can implement, like right now, to boost their mitochondrial energy and vitality?
That's a great question. First and foremost, I would say start eating real food. Get rid of the processed foods, anything that comes in a package, just get rid of those things. Eat real food. That is going to be a big thing for you. Get rid of all of the chemical cleaning agents in your house. Go to something very simple and natural like vinegar and water, baking soda and water. Those things worked well for hundreds of years and they still work very well today. Get rid of the Glade plugins. We don't need those things. They're extremely toxic. Get rid of plastic. Stop heating in it. Don't freeze in it. Go to glass. Very inexpensive old-fashioned mason jars are great ways to store food for us. And you can put them in the freezer. You can put them in the fridge. There's some vacuum pack devices for like $30 that you can get, and you can seal the food so that it stays fresher longer. There's a really nice hack with fruits and vegetables, putting them in the mason jar and vacuum sealing them, and they'll last 3 times longer than if you just put them in anything else in the fridge. So those kinds of things can really be helpful. Meditation, get outside, get your bare feet on the ground, start grounding with the earth. That's really important. Cold therapy. When you're in the shower, at the end of the shower, turn the water on cold and try to do a cold plunge for like a minute or two. You don't need a huge bucket that costs hundreds of dollars. Just do it in the shower. If you really can't do it afterwards, then do it before. Something is better than nothing. Dry brushing, I think, is a really great source of things. Doing some humming. If you like to sing, even though you may not be a good vocalist, it's okay. Sing in the shower, sing in the car. That helps stimulate and fix the vagus nerve. So these are a couple of things that you can do that really are inexpensive or have no cost to them at all. But you can start making some minimal changes and you can start to see some significant differences over time.
Well, Dr. Deb, thank you. This has been a great conversation, and it's given a lot of good information for things that people can do with their lifestyle, things that they can do with their diet, supplements, just all of these other things that can be incorporated to improve their mitochondrial health. And I know for me, it's helped me feel good about what I'm doing, because I'm doing a lot of the things you're recommending. I'm taking a lot of the same supplements because I know the importance of mitochondrial health. And so I really appreciate you sharing your expertise and being on tonight.
Well, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. I hope this has been really helpful for your listeners.
Thank you for sharing your time with us today. I hope you've gained insights to elevate your health and life. For more transformative evidence-based wisdom, I invite you to explore my 20-plus books at authorscott.com/shop. Don't miss out on the chance to supercharge your health and guide others to a better life. Like, share, and subscribe to join the movement transforming lives. Here's to your journey toward boundless health and happiness.